Gemini twin flame mirror. The soul lesson your karmic partner is forcing you to face. Gemini, you already know this connection is not ordinary. From the beginning, it didn't follow logic. It didn't unfold gently. It arrived with intensity, recognition, and confusion all at once, as if something ancient inside you was suddenly being spoken aloud by another person. This is not just attraction. It is not coincidence, and it is not meant to be comfortable. This is the twin flame mirror, and it appears only when your soul is ready to confront itself without filters. What makes this relationship so unsettling is not what the other person does, but what they awaken in you. You feel more alive, yet more destabilized. More seen, yet more exposed. Your thoughts loop. Your emotions fluctuate. You try to understand the connection, define it, explain it, but the more you think, the less clarity you feel. This is the first sign that the lesson is not intellectual. It is embodied. The core burden Gemini carries into relationships is subtle and rarely acknowledged. A split between mental connection and emotional anchoring. You know how to communicate. You know how to connect intellectually, verbally, energetically. You can create closeness through conversation, humor, shared ideas, constant exchange. But when intimacy begins to ask for stillness, when it asks you to remain present without analysis, something inside you starts to move. You don't leave physically, you leave internally. In many relationships, this pattern goes unnoticed because it keeps things light, adaptable, flexible. But a twin flame or karmic partner does not allow this escape. They destabilize your usual strategies. They trigger longing, jealousy, obsession, or emotional confusion, not to punish you, but to collapse the distance you maintain between thinking and feeling. This is why the connection feels cyclical. Push and pull. Closeness and withdrawal. Silence and intensity. The relationship mirrors your internal rhythm, your desire for depth battling your instinct to stay mobile. The other person becomes the stage where this inner conflict plays out. Gemini, you are not being tested because you are doing something wrong. You are being mirrored because you are ready to see something true. The twin flame does not come to complete you. It comes to reveal where you are divided. And the division is not about love, it is about presence. You may notice that this partner reflects your inconsistencies back to you. When you withdraw emotionally, they react. When you overthink, they feel distant. When you seek clarity through words, the connection becomes more confusing. This is not manipulation, it is resonance. Two energies amplifying what already exists. The burden you are being asked to face is this. You cannot think your way into union. You cannot communicate your way out of vulnerability. And you cannot keep one foot moving while asking for emotional permanence. This relationship exists because your soul wants integration, not explanation. The twin flame mirror does not ask, do you love them? It asks, are you willing to stay present when love destabilizes your mind? And until that question is answered not with words, but with embodiment, the lesson will repeat. Gemini, this is where the mirror sharpens. Because once the initial magnetism fades, what remains is not romance, it is exposure. This relationship does not allow you to hide behind charm, intelligence, or explanation. It reaches past your words and touches the place where you are least practiced, emotional stillness. The twin flame or karmic partner reflects back to you the parts of yourself you have learned to manage rather than inhabit. You may notice how quickly your mind activates when emotional uncertainty appears. You analyze messages. You replay conversations. You search for meaning in timing, tone, absence. This mental looping feels like seeking clarity. But in truth, it is avoidance. Avoidance of staying with the raw sensation of not knowing where you stand. The mirror shows you how deeply you fear being fully known without being able to edit yourself. In this connection, your usual flexibility becomes instability. Your adaptability becomes inconsistency. And the partner mirrors that back, sometimes through withdrawal, unpredictability, or emotional intensity. Not to harm you, but to reveal the cost of staying unanchored. You may project onto them what you have not integrated within yourself. You call them confusing, unavailable, inconsistent, emotionally overwhelming. And perhaps they are. But look closer. Those same qualities live inside you as unacknowledged patterns. The twin flame does not introduce chaos, it reflects it. This is the shadow lesson. You are not confused about them. You are confused about what happens inside you when you cannot control the narrative, when words fail, when timing slips, when love refuses to be logical. Your mind reaches for answers because your heart is being asked to stay without guarantees. Notice how the relationship triggers your fear of stillness. When there is silence between you, it feels unbearable. You want resolution. You want clarity. You want movement. But the mirror is asking you to stay present in the silence without collapsing into analysis. This is the initiation. There is also a deeper shadow here, the fear that if you stop managing the connection, you will lose it. That if you don't think, explain, communicate, adjust, something will fall apart. This belief keeps you in motion. But the mirror teaches a harder truth. What is real does not require constant maintenance through anxiety. The karmic partner exposes how you equate intensity with connection. The highs feel intoxicating because they pull you out of your head. The lows feel devastating because they force you back into it. This swing is not love, it is dysregulation seeking balance. And balance cannot be found through the other person. It must be cultivated within you. Gemini. The shadow revealed here is not about commitment or worthiness. It is about presence. You are learning that connection does not deepen through explanation, it deepens through capacity. The capacity to feel without fleeing. The capacity to stay without controlling. The capacity to let uncertainty exist without turning it into a problem to solve. The mirror is relentless because it is precise. It shows you where your intelligence has been used as a shield, where communication has replaced embodiment, where curiosity has replaced intimacy. And it will continue to reflect this back to you until you stop asking, what do they want? And begin asking, what am I avoiding feeling right now? That is the shadow lesson. And once it is seen, the dynamic begins to change. Gate 3, the alchemy of union from projection to integration. Gemini, this is where the lesson shifts from pain to power. Because once you see the mirror clearly, the relationship stops being something that happens to you and becomes something that works through you. The twin flame is not here to be understood. It is here to dissolve the inner split you have carried quietly for a long time. Alchemy is not about fixing the other person. It is about withdrawing projection and reclaiming energy. Every emotion you have placed on this connection, longing, fear, obsession, hope, confusion, is energy that wants to return to you for integration. When you stop chasing clarity from them, that energy begins to reorganize inside you. The core alchemical lesson is this. Union is not created through fusion with another. It is created through coherence within yourself. The twin flame activates your nervous system so intensely because it is demanding alignment between mind and heart. You can no longer live in analysis while your body is in longing. You can no longer speak about love while emotionally staying mobile. Something has to integrate. This is why the relationship may stall, break, or loop until you change your inner posture. When you remain mentally active but emotionally ungrounded, the connection mirrors instability. When you chase reassurance through words, the connection withholds. When you stay present without trying to control the outcome, something shifts. The drama loses fuel. Integration begins when you allow yourself to feel without naming, to stay without fixing, to witness longing without attaching it to action. This is not passivity. It is mastery. You are learning how to regulate yourself in the presence of emotional intensity, something your sign has rarely been asked to do. As this happens, the dynamic changes in one of two ways, neither of which you need to force. Either the relationship transforms, becoming calmer, clearer, less addictive, or it releases, no longer gripping your nervous system. In both cases, the lesson is past, because the true union has already occurred inside you. Here is the truth Gemini often resists. Not every soul connection is meant to be lived externally. Some exist solely to rewire you. The twin flame mirror collapses when you no longer need it to reflect your fragmentation. When your mind and heart begin to move in the same direction, the mirror loses its function. You stop obsessing. You stop looping. You stop asking why, not because you don't care, but because you are no longer split. Your curiosity softens into clarity. Your longing settles into presence. You realize that what you were seeking in the other was not completion, but permission to feel fully. And once you grant yourself that permission, the relationship no longer holds power over you. It becomes a teacher that bows and steps aside. Gemini. This is the alchemy. Turning projection into presence. Turning confusion into coherence. Turning karmic intensity into inner union. Gate 4. Practical presence: how Gemini passes the lesson. Gemini, passing this lesson does not require a conversation, a confession, or a final answer with the other person. It requires a shift so subtle that the relationship can no longer feed on your old patterns. The twin flame lesson is passed not when the story changes, but when you change how you stand inside the story. Practical presence begins with restraint, not silence, but containment. You stop narrating your emotions in real time. You stop explaining what you feel while you are still inside the feeling. You allow sensations to move through your body without immediately translating them into words. This alone changes everything, because the relationship has been feeding on your mental motion. When the motion slows, the dynamic weakens. You also learn to interrupt the loop of checking, rereading, replaying, imagining outcomes. Not through force, but through redirection into the body. When your mind begins to spiral, you bring attention to your breath, your posture, the ground beneath you. This grounds the energy that was previously projected outward. The connection loses its charge because it no longer has access to your nervous system. Another crucial practice is emotional honesty without performance. Gemini often communicates feelings in a way that keeps them manageable, clever, or light. Passing the lesson means allowing yourself to feel plainly sad when you are sad, longing when you are longing, without turning the feeling into a strategy. You stop using emotion to provoke response, clarity, or reassurance. Emotion becomes something you witness, not something you deploy. You may notice that when you do this, the other person reacts differently, or not at all. That is not failure, that is neutrality returning. Twin flame dynamics survive on imbalance. When you no longer lean forward or pull away, the system recalibrates. Sometimes the other person moves closer, sometimes they fade. In both cases, you remain centered. Practical presence also means reclaiming your life force. You redirect energy back into your own rhythm, your creativity, your body, your daily rituals. Not as distraction, but as integration. You are teaching your nervous system that fulfillment does not depend on emotional intensity with another. This restores sovereignty. There is a quiet moment when you know the lesson is passing. You think of them, and your body does not tighten. You remember the connection, and you feel clarity instead of urgency. You no longer need to resolve the story for peace to exist. That is the sign. Not closure. Not union. But neutrality with warmth. Gemini, this is how karmic lessons end. Not with answers, but with embodiment. When you can stay present with yourself regardless of what the other does, the mirror has done its work. Gemini, the twin flame mirror does not disappear because you understand it. It disappears because you no longer need it. When the lesson is complete, the intensity softens not because love failed, but because fragmentation healed. The relationship stops demanding answers when your inner world stops asking questions it was never meant to solve. This connection came into your life to show you where you leave yourself when emotions become uncertain. It was never about choosing them or losing them. It was about choosing presence over pursuit, embodiment over explanation, coherence over curiosity scattered by fear. When you stop trying to resolve the relationship and instead allow yourself to be whole inside it, the karmic charge dissolves naturally. You may notice that the story no longer dominates your thoughts. You still remember but without urgency. You still care but without collapse. This is not detachment, this is integration. The mirror has closed because you have learned to stand in your own center without abandoning your heart or overworking your mind. If this message found you at the right moment, trust that it is because the lesson is nearing completion. Sit with this question gently, without trying to answer it right away. What part of myself did this connection awaken that I am now ready to keep? That answer will not come from thought, it will come from stillness. If this reflection resonated, stay with this channel. These messages are not here to promise outcomes or predict unions. They are here to guide you back to wholeness. Share in the comments what this connection taught you about yourself. And if you want to continue this journey of integration and inner sovereignty, subscribe not for love stories, but for truth.